That's Rives to my right, and I'm here, Brian Turner. We're going to do a little video. Asher and I had more than a few discussions about music, and of course I've got a few years on him. I'm 66 years old, he's 13 years old. Conversation we'd like to have today, we've talked about it before, but we think it's worth talking about, is about the music of his generation and the music of my generation. I always say, I know that people feel like the songs of their youth is the greatest music of all time. Everybody is nostalgic about the music they grew up with. I know that that's probably true. However, I would like to make the argument that I would say from the probably 1964, when the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show, until 1974, I would say that decade of music was a renaissance and probably the greatest era of music in probably the last 100 years. Now I know people would argue that swing era was great, and it certainly was, and so forth. But there are so many albums that are just classic that came out between 1964 and 74. I mean, you can come up. I have a friend, Martin DeVore. We had this discussion before, and he listed the great albums, and he came up with hundreds of them. You know, it's like not a few, but hundreds of them. So my question to Asher is the music that I grew up with better than the music that you have grown up with? I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah. So first, let me say they're both very different.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the newer ones influenced a lot by the music of your time. But I would say I enjoy your time, like the 60's. I don't think the music today will be around in the next 100 years. Like, people aren't going to listen to that one as much. Like, I'm pretty sure the Beatles have more monthly listeners on Spotify than most of the Billboard artists. Mm-hmm. And they came out 60 years ago. I would say there's definitely even a bit of nostalgia that keeps them going with older people, but also when the older people introduce the newer people or younger people like me, you just, as George Martin said once, you don't tell a child or teach a child to love the Beatles. You just merely expose it to them, and they'll take it on from there. Which was definitely true in my case. My grandfather showed me the Beatles, and I rocketed it all. But I can think of, as he said, I can think of a bunch of albums from the 60's that will still be around later. I can't really think of a lot of albums that would come 100 years still be prominent. I challenge you, if you can come up with 5 albums post-2000 that you think will be around in the year 2100 or even 2050, I would like to see those, because there's not really many of them.
That's a very good point. Yeah, if you're out there just in our comments, if you can come up, because it might be that there's some stuff that we haven't heard, and you're returning us on something great, you know? Because I know that happens sometimes. Being a guitar teacher, sometimes my student will bring something, and I go, oh, this is really cool. But honestly, most of my students bring in old stuff. Yeah. Yeah. You can continue if you
an artist, I think, will be around longer than the rest is John Mayer, because he is so inspired by everything else. Yeah. You can hear Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and all of his records.
Yeah.
But take an artist like Maroon 5. They start out influenced. then they build their own sound, and then they get influenced by the newer stuff and kind of go downhill.
Yeah, I mean, when you listen to John Mayer, he has deep roots. There's a blues feel to him, you know, which comes from listening to Hendrix and maybe even before that, the Delta blues stuff. He's got that kind of an Eric Johnson rock type thing too, you know, where he's really, you know, studied the rhythm and blues, kind of like a Hendrixy influence, you know. So he, when I listen to him, you know, he's an amalgamation of the past, a lot of the past, you know, a combination of a lot of influence. You can tell he's done his homework.
Yeah.
But when I hear some of the stuff like the Super Bowl halftime or things like this, you know, it's techno stuff, you know.
Yeah.
For me, it just doesn't have an appeal. It doesn't have, you know, it doesn't swing. It doesn't have the blues feel.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my take of it.
Of course, we sound super traditional, but I think what we're saying is true for us at least. You might not agree with us, but if you can give me a good point why today's music is better than the 60s, I will shout it out. Like, I will definitely give you credit because I can't find one. Sure, I like the newer artists. Not all of them, but I don't like rap. That's personal preference. I know a lot of people do. But, I like some of the newer stuff, but I don't think it's going to, I'm not going to show my kids it whenever I'm older.
Right.
I'll probably forget about it by the time I have kids.
Yeah. And I'll have to give credit. There were a lot of one-hits songs. Because I remember I used to play in a cover band in the 80s and 90s, and we learned a lot of the newest song and played it for a few months, and then it'd be gone. You know that. You know, but you know what I'm saying. But the classic stuff, the Beatles, the Animals, Cream, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, all that stuff. It just seems to have an appeal even today. Yeah. But it's very, very good.
So our stance is 60s music is better, but that doesn't mean all new music is bad.
Okay. So we've talked about John Mayer. We've talked about Maroon 5. Can you tell me some others that are really worth mentioning that are new? Not really.
Can't really
Yeah, that's what I kind of.
There's a couple newer ones that I really like that aren't really what we qualify as today's music. But, a lot of the ones I like are influenced by the 60s artists. Like one guy named Scott Mulvihill.
Yeah.
He's all you can hear Beatles in his records, and he's not even a rock. He's I would say kind of a jazz pop thing. He plays upright bass.
Yeah.
But
what's his name again?
Scott Mulvihill.
See, there you are. I'll have to check into that. See, I might find something I like. I'm wanting to find other new things I like. You know, I mean, I don't want to be looked at as this old fogey that doesn't, you know, not open to new ideas, which I might be that, but I don't want to be looked at like that. You know. Necessary. So to conclude, I would say that the old music is better. Am I out of line to say that?
No.
Okay. All right.
But
if you would subscribe or leave comments, we'd be very appreciative. Thank you.
We'll put this on both of our channels.
Exactly. So. All right. Y'all have a good day. That it?
Yep.
All right. Play something as I turn it off.